Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 129 of our trip around the United States. We finished up in the state of Illinois yesterday and we are ready to begin our journey into Kentucky. Now I kind of look at Kentucky and Tennessee the same on the map because we've put a lot of work into both states. It was one of the few places that we could actually drive up to from Florida and still be able to do some stuff here. Other than that, we had to fly to pretty much every other state that was left after we completely decimated the counties in the southeast region. I consider these two states together because as we're running the border of one, we'll be hopping back and forth from another. So there's going to be a lot of Kentucky-Tennessee split days, like today. Today is going to be about half and half. Today we're going to be focusing on the very southwest part of Kentucky and the very northwest part of Tennessee, getting counties and pages on each side. And because this is the state corner for both states, they also have some very tiny page slices that we have to be very careful that we're getting. So that's going to put us into some very interesting locations, and like yesterday, we're going to see a couple of geographical oddities along the way. Thankfully, our plan to run south has been working out well for us. It is significantly warmer here than it was in Illinois just a few days ago. No need for warm layers, it's beautiful just the way it is. I know this part of Kentucky and Tennessee is going to be pretty rural compared to what we're going to get into as we push east into both states, but I know there's going to be some good things in store. Today, we have a webcam on the schedule near the end of the agenda, which is why we pushed really hard to make sure we could actually start near sunrise, even with daylight savings, so we can make sure to get that webcam. Otherwise, we'll be making our way steadily through the 280 miles we have for today as we weave back and forth between the states toward the end of our day. I'm looking forward to our first day of Kentucky, and I hope you are too. Come on, let's go check it out. We get our first morning in Kentucky started off here on Hickman Bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. As we saw in Paducah last night, Hickman also has a river wall that bears murals telling its history of the city. The first cabin was built here by James Mills in 1819. It was devastated by two floods in the early 1900s and received the aid of the Army Corps of Engineers in shoring up its banks. While Hickman is not a big city by any right, with a population of only around 2,000, it was the last civilization we'd be seeing for quite a while this morning. Our journey toward the western end of the state took us through some lonely roads. We just happened to get lucky and spot this very neat historical marker along the way. What's that you say? You need to find a physical geocache in Kentucky's Delore Page 74? Oh, it can be done all right, but it's not going to be easy to get to. Most of what's out here is earth caches and virtuals, but there are a couple of physical listings in Bubble Land. The only way to get to Bubble Land is to drive through Tennessee and then come up like you're in part of Missouri. Only then will you be able to get to this part of the page. Here in Bubble Land, the Mississippi River took an odd turn as a result of the New Madrid earthquake back in the early 1800s. It changed course and left it in a way that the Kentucky and Tennessee borders were in dispute. Eventually, Tennessee dropped their claim for this portion of the state, leaving it to Kentucky. However, the only way to get to this part of Kentucky is to drive through Tennessee. And when you look at the map, it really looks like it should be part of Missouri. So this is a very confusing place. Good girl, you found it again. Yeah, it's right in that bush. Here we go. Look at that. You are the best geocacher, right, Jen? It's pretty wet underneath there, but there we have it. Delore Page 74 for Kentucky. What a weird place to get to. When the birds were surprised to see a car, we should have taken that as a sign that not many people come out this way. We went as far north into this little exclave of Kentucky as we could make it along the levee until we finally came to a dead end. Having traversed all of the roadway available on the east side of the bubble, we made our way toward the west side. We had the entire place to ourselves to enjoy each of the unique views along the way. But as we made our way toward the west side, we came across no trespassing signs. Google Maps shows a road that runs right along the edge of this field that we followed as far as we could. But that too led us straight into more no trespassing signs. I have now followed my maps and driven every legal road that's possible to get to on out here. And most of these are not. So what you have to do when you come into this weird little page is you can drive up the east side on the levee, and you can get almost all the way to the top there. And then you've got to come in from the west side, and you've got to drive north from there as well. You can't access any of that stuff in the center. There's this everywhere you turn. So what seems like a very short drive on the map turns into a very long drive around from one side of the bubble to reach the other. At very least, all of the roads on this side of the Tennessee line are traversable. It only starts to become a little less developed once you get into the Kentucky side. And that's it. We're only about 500 feet into Kentucky across the line from Tennessee, and that's as far as you can get on this road. I can't help but getting the feeling that this is part of Kentucky that Kentucky would rather just forget about. Although, this is also the lowest point in the state of Kentucky. Right here at the very southwestern tip that you can only get to through Tennessee, right there at the Mississippi River beyond these trees, wherever the river comes up to the bank, is the lowest point in the state. All that space here in the bubble, and you can only get to this little tiny portion that I've been able to drive today. Very interesting place. Done with that portion of Kentucky for the morning, we made our way into Tennessee for the afternoon. The only listing here in Tiptonville is an earth cache, but we did happen to spot a Veterans Memorial on the way in. This just seems wrong somehow. To complete this earth cache, we actually have to take an elevation reading directly on top of a benchmark disc. As it turns out, getting into the westernmost part of Tennessee in Delore Page 46 would be just as much of an adventure as Kentucky's Delore Page 74 had been. It was a long road out that became increasingly sketchy the further we followed it. Now that was a crazy journey to get out here. That long road, all the wet spots in it, some really turned up spots. I was a little worried through some of them, but it's been dry enough out here that I took the risk and we made it through no problem. And sure enough, wouldn't you know it, this geocache has been 2.5 years without a find because people couldn't access it because of tornadoes or flood damage or whatever, but sure enough, still right here waiting to be found. Apparently, I took too long telling all of you that. This is how the dog tells me she wants out of the car and she feels left behind. Now I've got to negotiate with her to get the driver's seat back.
Would it be okay if I drive the car today? Yeah, maybe you can drive later, okay? When you're 16, we'll get you your learner's permit, okay, Ai-chan?
It's such a stark contrast. It really doesn't even feel like I'm in the same day that I started this morning. After spending all morning on those country roads between Kentucky and Tennessee, and fighting for every mile earned and every geocache, everything I've done since then, it's been very easy urban parking grabs, just like this, and just like that. All right, it looks like they're serving up fresh geocaches here. Let's have a bite. Two ovens in a row. Well, at least I learned my lesson at that first one. I ensured everything here was cool to the touch before I dove in for the prize. It's very interesting to find a full-size container like this in what is actually a very urban environment. But always keep in mind that candy and snacks and geocaches are a no-no. And this is the last county find that I need to complete today's route. And wouldn't you know it, we're still ahead of the sun. Not by much, it's setting down on us pretty quickly here, but we did everything with sunlight once again. And just around the corner from our last target of the day, we found the Murray-Callaway County Veterans Memorial. This Veterans Memorial is not tucked away from everything else. Instead, it is integrated directly into the design of the park around it. The walking path encourages visitors to take a walk through time, beginning with the World Wars and ending at the global war on terrorism. It is a very nice tribute to our veterans and set up at a very busy location so that people will always be able to see it day and night. Well, there certainly is something to be said for timing. After not seeing a proper Veterans Memorial all day long, here at our last target of the day in Murray, we come across a great one. Loved being able to take a walk through this park and get to see this Veterans Memorial as we watch the sunset over the tops of the trees not too far away from us. It was definitely not the day I had anticipated getting started at sunrise this morning. I knew what we were going to do in the western side of Kentucky and Tennessee was going to be rural, but I'm going to tell you right now, I had no idea just how rural it was going to be. we had our work cut out with us for some lonely country roads and some really hard to get to places and really weird geographic anomaly. How about that part of Kentucky that you can only get through Tennessee, huh? Really, looking at the map, looking at the way the roads are maintained, getting a feel for the county there, I really get the feeling that Kentucky said, okay, yeah, that's part of the state, but we're not going to do anything for it. You guys who live there, you're on your own. And you know what? Those people, they took initiative and they made it their own. We hope you guys enjoyed this rural tour and some of the interesting geocaches we got along the way. With a little luck, that's the most rural we'll be seeing of these two states. Although, I know when we get into the far eastern side of Tennessee, we're going to be doing something much the same, but hopefully it won't be quite as much as that. Either way, you know this journey is going to keep continuing, and hopefully the weather will remain in our favor and we won't have rainy and snowy days for a good long while. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.